Welcome to the 2023 Convocation. Please be seated. The academic year is punctuated by ceremonies, and this is one of my favorites. In May, we gather in this same beautiful setting for commencement, which celebrates the achievements of our students and marks their transition to life after W&L. And then we disperse for the summer. Students travel, faculty immerse themselves in scholarship, and staff accomplish projects all over campus. Each of us is grateful for the change of pace and season, and yet there's something missing, something that impels us toward this moment when summer transitions into fall, or at least we hope it's going to transition into fall any day now. Convocation, which is literally a calling together, marks the moment when we reassemble ourselves as a community. As students and as teachers and as staff devoted to providing an environment in which teaching and learning can take place, our avocations, that which we are called to do, require our convocation, our being called together. None of us can be who we most truly are individually without all of us being here collectively, which is why this time of year feels so good. We're once again able to be our best selves because we're together. Convocation emphasizes the fact and celebrates the fact that we're an academic community. We wear our ceremonial regalia to signify that our distinctively academic work, the fundamental work of the university, which unites us all, has commenced. We welcome our newly arrived undergraduates and law students, and we encourage the members of the class of 2024 to make the most of their final year at Washington and Lee. The occasion is momentous enough that it calls for appropriate music, which we can always count on the university singers to provide. This year they have chosen Stomp on the Fire by the award-winning Colorado-based composer Andrea Ramsey. Her piece is meant to encourage us to confront the challenges we face, whether pandemics, natural disasters, or political turmoil, without allowing them to consume us. Dr. Ramsey exhorts us to stomp on the fire together. Professor Lynch and the university singers, please take it away.
Whoa.
Thank you, University Singers and Professor Lynch. It's fitting that the centerpiece of this ceremony, the kickoff to our academic year, will be delivered by our own faculty member, Howard Pickett. Howard graduated Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude from Millsaps College in Mississippi with a bachelor's degree in religious studies and classics. He later earned a master's and a doctorate from the University of Virginia in religious studies and ethics. Since joining the faculty at W&L in 2011, Howard has taught courses central to the very popular Shepherd program for the interdisciplinary study of poverty and human capability, including POV 101, Poverty, Equity, and Empathy, and Justice and Mercy, which is a spring term course taught in partnership with and held at the Regional State Prison. Howard is the author of the 2017 book, Rethinking Sincerity and Authenticity, The Ethics of Theatricality in Kant, Kierkegaard, and Levinas, and recent articles on the ethics of incarceration and prison reform. Howard's current research focuses on empathy, ethics, and the future of the humanities. Howard is a dedicated teacher and mentor who's wholly committed to the mission of the Shepherd program, which is to understand and address the causes and consequences of poverty and inequality in ways that respect the dignity of every person. He is also wholly committed to the broader educational mission of Washington and Lee. Howard's address is entitled, Why Are We Here? The Past, Present, and Future. Please join me in welcoming Howard Pickett.
Thank you, President Dudley, and thanks to all of y'all. This is a real honor, and I hope something I say in the next 15 or so minutes sticks with somebody out there. Why are we here? Why are you here? Hold on, Thunder. Answer one, stardust and dignity. Why is a weird word. Sometimes we answer it by looking back to the past. Someone asks you why you're here, and you say something about a postcard from admissions, or a call from a coach, or a scholarship, or for some of us, a job ad. That's one way of saying why we're here, and there's a lot of truth to it. But one thing we learn to do better here, I hope, is to see things in broader, less individualistic ways. Someone asks why we're here, and we might say something about the history of the university, the evolution of language and learning, the origin of the species, Earth's origins 4.5 billion years ago, the physics of the Big Bang, or for that matter, a religious worldview that traces our origins back even beyond the Big Bang. That's another way of saying why we're here. And it raises a question. Would we be better off if we remembered that billions of years have brought us together today? Would keeping our history in mind help us make more of our time together, not take so much for granted? And would keeping that history, some say miracle, in mind, help us treat each other, each and every person, in fact, with dignity? Now, dignity is one of those words. It's all around us, but it's not always clear what it means. It comes from Latin, from dignitas, meaning worth, excellence, even someone of high social rank. So when we say everyone has dignity, we're basically saying we should treat each person the way we treat the powerful and the popular. According to German philosopher Immanuel Kant, to say everyone has dignity is to say each of us has immeasurable worth. Things have price. You can buy and sell them and even replace them, but people are priceless. Each person deserves respect, what Kant calls Achtung, or attention. In effect, we ought to see each and every person, regardless of income, IQ, appearance, abilities, political party, or anything else, the way a soldier sees a superior officer. But here's the kicker. They ought to see us the same way. In fact, here's the real kicker. Everyone ought to see everyone that way. We're different, but we're fundamentally equal. The human being, whether you're looking in the mirror in the morning or someone across a classroom or down the colonnade or across the country or across continents, is essentially stardust, but stardust with astonishing capacities. To think and ask questions, to plan out projects, big and small, to tell stories and histories about ourselves and our projects. Even to refrain from pursuing our projects when doing so might violate another person's project. And it's these moral and rational capacities, whether or not they're developed or deployed, that call us to attention. Now, granted, Kant's ideas raise some serious questions. For starters, what does it take to respect the dignity of every person? There are 8 billion of us, after all. Okay, we know we should respect the well-being and liberty of others, but what does it take to do that? Good intentions aren't enough. We need reliable research into the actual effects of policies and practices on people. And what do we do when the wants and needs of some conflict with the wants and needs of others or ourselves? Again, good intentions aren't enough, and neither is empirical research. We also need ethics. Now, to be clear, we don't need ethics to tell us that we should care about people or why. But ethics can help us figure out how to care, how to adjudicate across the many competing claims on us. Should we maximize well-being in the world? Or should we minimize the burdens on the most marginalized? And for that matter, should we really listen to Kant? Can an 18th century philosophy professor, one with outrageous racist and sexist views, really be a good guide for us today? It's not my job to tell you what to think. You'll make up your own mind. But as for me, I suspect Kant is a good guide, above all because I think he's on to something about respect. In fact, it's precisely because I agree with Kant's emphasis on respect that I find his own racism and sexism so reprehensible. Look, just because somebody has a good idea or a bad idea doesn't mean all their ideas are going to be good or bad. The question is, can we hang on to the good while steering clear of the bad? Can we use Kant's own words to criticize and correct his worst ideas? More importantly, can we use Kant's imperfect ideas to bring about a better world? One more just than what Kant himself might have imagined. So why are we here? Answer one, we're stardust, learning the art of respect for others and ourselves. Answer two, the polyphony of life. Why is a weird word? Sometimes we answer by looking not back to the past, but forward to the future. Someone asks you why you're here, and you say to get a good job or a fulfilling career, and that's another way of saying why we're here, and there's a lot of truth to it. But another thing we learn to do better here, I hope, is to see things in complex, multidimensional ways. A fulfilling career is fantastic. I hope it's clear. I love my job. But there's more to life than the labor market. We're here for more than a profession. We're also here for our personal and political lives. Sure, getting a good job can be a challenge and we ought to take it seriously, but life's full of challenges we ought to take seriously, and those challenges confront us no matter what we do for a living. What's the role of forgiveness in a good life? That's a question for our personal, political, and professional lives. Sometimes somebody's hurt you or you've hurt them and you're not sure how the relationship could, let alone should, be repaired. Sometimes somebody's committed a crime and even the victim's family hasn't forgiven them, but it was 30 years ago. What role do second chances play in a just society? Should our company hire someone with a felony record? Or what's the just way to address a long line of past wrongs? Sometimes your child comes home and says one of their friends says America's a racist country and another says it isn't, and what do you think? What role do reparations play in a just society, especially when the after effects of atrocities linger, but many of the wrongdoers are dead? Do our companies' recruiting practices disadvantage some groups over others? If so, is there a way to redress that wrong without wronging somebody else? Or how should we approach death and dying? Sometimes you and your sister are on the phone trying to decide what to do if dad doesn't get any better. And sometimes a pandemic strikes. Some say we ought to do whatever it takes to decrease deaths, and others say, but what about mental health and the needs of the next generation? Should everyone come back to work? What if some get sick or worse? Now notice, each question confronts us in our personal, political, and professional lives. But notice something else. To answer the questions well, we need different perspectives. We need an interdisciplinary approach. We need to know what the sciences tell us about recidivism rates, racial inequality, the results of getting COVID multiple times. But we also need the insights of the arts and humanities. We need to figure out what is going on, but we also have to figure out what could and should be going on. We need empirical methods and also empathetic ethical minds. Faced with questions about forgiveness, racism, death, and dying, we need our late nights in the lab and the library. If we want to do justice to life's complexity and the dignity of all, then each of us must learn to play the complex chords made up of the different disciplines. That's why we have gen ed requirements and electives. But we're finite. There's only so much one person can do, so each of us must also focus, digging into some disciplines over others. That's why we major in minor. If we want to address the pressing problems of today and tomorrow, we're going to need what German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer once called the polyphony of life. We need the polyphony, or the many voices, of each and every person, every expertise, students of economics and English, classics and computer science, sociology, Spanish, physics, philosophy, and more. So, why are we here? Answer 2, we're preparing to play our part in bringing about a better, more just world for all. Answer 3, the last one. Question everything. Why is a weird word? Sometimes we answer it by looking not back to the past or forward to the future, but around us in the present. Why are we here is often another way of saying, what's our shared work together? It's a tough question, but another thing we learn to do better here, I hope, is to notice things too easily overlooked. So to conclude my comments, I want to look at one last answer to our question, one that's been hiding under our noses and over our heads all along. It's on the W&L coat of arms, or the crest. I think you can see it on your program, or else pull it up on your phone. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, what could a medieval-looking knight's shield tell us about the challenges of the 21st century? And what could we learn from the crests of the Washington and Lee families? After all, weren't they slaveholders? And are we really going to get yet another talk about the school motto, non incautus futuri, not unmindful of the future? No. I want to look at another motto, one that doesn't get nearly enough attention. It's still part of the crest, so some of those earlier questions and objections still stand, but bear with me. I'm going to come back to those, I promise. In the shield's top left corner, you'll see a little Latin, omnia autem probate. Now that's a translation of St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, chapter 5, verse 21. I know. Is he really going to start the year at a religiously diverse school in a pluralistic society with a Bible quote? Yes, I am. We'll come back to your concerns. But another thing we learn to do here, I hope, is to listen first, make judgments later. So, what does the quote mean? Omnia, all things or everything, related to our word omniscient or all-knowing. Autem, a conjunction, but. Probate. Now, if you know a little Latin, you're going to know that that's an imperative verb. It's telling us something we must do. But what is it we must do? Probate is related to the words prove and probe, so the motto might mean prove everything or probe everything. Inspect, examine, test everything, maybe even question everything. So if somebody asks you what we're all about here at W&L, you tell them our motto is question everything. But what exactly does that mean? And more importantly, is it good advice? Well, first, it means no topics off limits. The crest tells us to be radically curious, to wake up to the many wonders of the world, question everything. Second, it means no thinker gets a free pass, but also no idea gets ruled out without an adequate hearing. The crest tells us to be radically open-minded. Why? Well, for starters, because the other person might be right, at least in part. The point, after all, isn't to win a debate, it's to figure out what's true and good. And even if the person seems wrong to you, exploring the pitfalls of their position could improve your own. Third, it means we have to work together. The crest tells us to be radically collaborative. Probate is a plural imperative. It means all y'all question everything. But no one can look into everything. There are only so many hours in a life. But we can, as a community, be open to any and every issue as it arises and as the occasion allows. Fourth, and finally, it means we must be not only open-minded, but also discerning. The crest tells us to be radically charitable and critical. It says question everything, even test everything, not believe anything you want. But to question and test things, we need to listen closely and eventually come to some conclusions. We have to be on the lookout for both insights and errors. Now, of course, the motto leaves a whole lot unanswered about that process. For one, which test should we use? Well, a lot's going to depend on the question we're asking. Figuring out which masks are effective is different from deciding whether we should open schools and businesses in light of those findings. Both questions are crucial, but one thing we're learning here, I hope, is that different questions call for different approaches. And what should we do with what has or hasn't passed the test of critical reflection? Well, I want you to remember that that little motto is a fragment from a longer passage. Paul says, question everything, hang on to the good, steer clear of the bad. Examine everybody's claims and then keep what's insightful and edifying, upbuilding, right? And reject what's not. But what do we do when people disagree? And what do we do when we've had a chance to test an idea, but others haven't? Should we allow the airing of all ideas so others can make up their own minds? What if we feel fairly sure that the ideas are erroneous, offensive, even dangerous? Again, I'm not here to tell you what to think. But I do want to close with two quick suggestions. First, define your terms. Too much confusion, conflict, and even contempt creeps into our lives because of different definitions. Before jumping to conclusions and before judging others, a little diligence is due to figure out what people might actually mean and why they might mean it. What does it mean to say a crime is unforgivable or a country is fundamentally racist? Or for that matter, that certain masks are effective? Well, at what? For whom? How effective exactly? And what does it mean to say we should or shouldn't open schools and businesses? If our goal's what? To minimize infections? Improve educational and emotional outcomes for kids? All the above and more? Second suggestion, coming back to the concerns about the crest. Remember, the motto tells us to question everything, so that must include the crest itself, right? Its use of the Washington and Lee family crests, its use of the Bible, even my use of it right now, right? The crest is, in effect, self-critical, self-correcting. It invites us to question it, even to disagree with it, if it seems off. The crest tells us to listen to others and to think for ourselves. And that seems like pretty good advice. You can almost hear it say, surround yourself with people who give you the time and the tools to make up your own mind. And do the same for them. Invite people to question you, even to disagree with you, if they think you're wrong. Respect for dignity, ours and theirs, demands nothing less. So, why are we here? Answer 3, we're learning to ask better questions and answer them better, hanging on to the good while steering clear of the bad. In conclusion, life's short. You can't take it with you. Study something that fascinates you and do something that makes the world a better place while you still can.
Personally, I don't think there's any better way to spend a Thursday afternoon than listening to an excellent philosophy talk with 500 of my closest friends, quite seriously. And Professor Pickett has just given us a lot that's worth thinking about, talking about. I hope you will all be thinking and talk about it for a long time, which means questioning it as well. Thank you, Howard, for that address. To help bring this evening's program to conclusion, the university singers will perform the Washington and Lee hymn. Would everyone please stand? Thank you, University Singers, once again. You may remain standing. I want to close by reiterating that we are here to do important work, which we can only do together. We're privileged to serve a noble mission to which each of us makes distinctive contributions. What we do here matters, and doing it well should bring you a deep and deserved sense of satisfaction. I'd like to thank the class of 1942, whose generous gift supports Convocation. I'd like to thank facilities and public safety for their extra efforts on this occasion, and dining services for the meal that awaits us on Cannon Green. With that, and in my formal capacity as president of Washington and Lee University, I officially open the 2023-2024 academic year. May it be an outstanding one for all of you. Thank you. We are adjourned.